All right, let me ask you something really quick. Have you ever heard of the illusion of control bias? It's the psychological tendency for people to overestimate their ability to control situations that are actually random, chance-based, or influenced by external factors. In our current day and age, a lot of people suffer from stress or chronic stress because they are trying to control everything. It's really common nowadays, especially in terms of like hustle culture and things you see on social media. But I really think not being able to let go of outcomes causes chronic stress, especially when it's done over a long period of time. And we know that there are a host of health issues that arise from chronic stress, according to the American Psychological Association. So we know that stress, especially chronic stress, so stress that high levels of stress that happen over a long period of time, can increase heart rate and blood pressure, which leads to heart issues. Sleep issues, anxiety and depression can also increase. It also can cause digestive issues and an overall weakened immune system. And I think one of the most valuable lessons I've learned in my life is that we really don't have as much control over things as we think. One of the best examples for me where this personally happened was actually a breakup. A girl I was dating a while ago, she was actually a type 1 diabetic, and it really showed me how little control we actually have over certain things in our lives. She was type 1, so obviously it couldn't be avoided. It was an actual health condition, and it started when she was 8 years old. And if you have any friends or family that have diabetes, you know how hard it is, how expensive it is, and how detrimental it can be to your overall health. It was very obvious that she would have chose to not have diabetes. No one willingly wants diabetes or wants cancer. But some of those things are out of our control, especially when it comes to environmental factors that cause rates of cancer and things like that. That's currently happening in our day and time. And some of these things have been happening since the 50s and 60s. So I think part of letting go is actually having realistic expectations and ideas about what you can control. Some things that you can control are like your habits. Some really good examples are how much you sleep, how much you exercise, and definitely the type of food you put in your body. That's a huge one, not only for physical health, but also mental health. If you're eating processed foods every day, you are going to become more depressed. There is science that backs that. Another thing that's in your control is how you react to situations. I'm going to talk more about what you can't control here in a second, but you do have the capacity to control how you emotionally react to negative feedback. And learning to do so in a professional in a healthy way is a really important skill to learn and something that you will need if you're going to grow as a person, especially when it comes to friendships that you really value and people that actually care about you. If they're not able to tell you hard things that you need to hear that are going to better you, you're going to continue to remain stagnant, especially if you have a really harsh reaction initially. It's going to continue to stunt your growth and you're not going to be able to grow as much as a person. Another thing that you can control is your effort. How much effort you put into work, into taking care of your health, and your goals. Another thing that is within your control is your environment. This is something that I've been learning in my life, and it's something I've struggled with a lot, but there's a lot of power in protecting your energy and who you choose to allow into your life. If you're not protecting your energy and give it to everybody, it's going to be scattered, and you're going to find yourself emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted, and even getting sick at times. Another point that goes along with your environment is the type of media you consume, and this is incredibly important. Another really good rule of thumb in life, or I think a rule that I think is consistent, is that moderation is key in all things. But a big thing that affects people today, I think, is media and our phones. The more time you're spending on your phone, and specifically the type of media you're consuming, if you're consuming a lot of negative news type media, you are going to become more depressed and more anxious for literally no reason. And it's really just not worth it. You have control over that. You can literally turn your phone off or stop receiving notifications that are continuing to make your mental health worse. It's just about taking action and control and not letting those emotional reactions dictate the type of media that you're consuming. And now let's talk about some things that are outside of your control. Now, this is a big one that's been apparent in my life, but you cannot control other people's emotions or feelings or reactions to situations. And I think that's one reason relationships are so hard, because there's a lot of trust, right? In order to have a healthy relationship, you need to be able to trust someone. And if you don't trust them, it's never going to work. Trust is like one of the foundations of relationships. And specifically in my life, like I've gone through a lot of breakups and things, and I used to take a lot of the guilt that I would feel for ending those relationships on myself because of other people's reactions. And I learned that that's not healthy, and you really shouldn't do that. If you are doing what you believe is best for yourself and you're following what you believe your intuition is telling you, you shouldn't feel guilty for it, even though sometimes making the right decision sucks. Other things that are not in your control are the economy, global events, massive weather events, and even some things like climate change. There are a lot of people that seem to be concerned about these topics, and rightfully so, because it affects their futures. And a really good thing you can do is just dial back what is actually within your control and trying not to obsess over these things to help keep you out of stressful states. Another thing that you cannot control, no matter how hard you try, is the timing of success. You can influence factors like effort you put in, the quality of the work that you're producing. But ultimately, especially if you work for a company or something, there's so many moving parts that you can't actually dictate the outcome of those successes. But if you are showing up every single day and you are producing high quality work and the people around you are doing that, I do believe you are going to be successful. It just is going to take time. But again, the time of success is not something that's within your control. And this brings me to the idea of flow. And essentially what flow is, like I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of it, entering flow states and things like that. And I actually had a friend in Bozeman explain it to me in a really cool way. He saw flow as a river and like your life as a river, basically. And when you were trying to control yourself going down this river by like grabbing grass in the banks or branches and things like that, you're really just like beating yourself up and cutting yourself up. When if you just let go and follow the flow of your life and follow your intuition, it can actually lead to really beautiful things. It's just a matter of being able to let go of the illusion of control that you have. And I think that you can enter flow states more quickly when you surrender to the task or the goal. In fact, a lot of successful athletes, artists, and musicians often describe their peak performance as getting out of their own way. And that is what I would describe as flow. The best example that I have for my personal life is that I terribly bad, more than anything, wanted to be like a Twitch streamer. After college, I was like literally working part-time. I was paying for AIM training, coaches for games, and I was practicing every single day to try to become like the best I could be at video games so that I could try to attract an audience and make it my life. And for people who don't know about Twitch or video games, that is an actual thing. And some people make really, really good money on Twitch, but it's a really, really small percentage. Most people on Twitch make minimum wage, which is kind of crazy. But after years of trying and failing and it not working out for me, my intuition started to tell me that I wanted to work full time. It just felt like it was the right goal. And what happened for me was I ended up, this is kind of a crazy story, but this is like why I believe that things line up if you follow your intuition. I had just moved to Bozeman, Montana, and I was trying to find a job. I was really struggling to find a job because I wanted part-time so I could stream. I had applied to a lot and none of them were working. So I actually dressed up in a nice outfit. I had like a suit on for a receptionist position at a physical therapist's office. I showed up and gave her my resume, and she told me that she likely wasn't going to hire me because I was too overqualified, and she was afraid that I was going to leave. And at this point, I was quite defeated because I had applied to a lot of jobs and I had nothing hit, and I was running out of money. But I actually got a call later that day from Viral Hog and they wanted to do an interview with me. I had never heard of Viral Hog. I didn't know what they were. It turns out that one of the owners of Viral Hog went in to see her for a massage. She gave him my resume, and they called me, and I was able to get the job. I did work part-time for a little while at Viral Hog, and I was streaming on the side because I still wanted to make that work. But I just had a feeling that I needed to stop streaming and that I needed to dive into Viral Hog. And shortly after we did that, we took advantage of some algorithms and whatnot, and we ended up growing to over 1 million subscribers in a very short time frame. And from there, I became one of the best employees, and we ended up growing at over 23 million by the time I had left, and I was running the entire content department. And I really believe that a big reason for that was because I went with the flow of what my life was trying to tell me to do. And I think that if you do that, there's a lot of good can happen if you do that, if you follow your intuition. And I think another thing that makes people hesitate, especially when it comes to taking risks or chances, is that they're afraid of their perceptions or failing. But I would make the argument that if you don't try something and your heart really wants to, even if you fail at it, you're going to always wonder what could have been. And that can eat you alive because after you start to have kids and a family and stuff like that, you're locked into a position where you don't have the capacity to pursue the things that you really want to do or you can, but it obviously becomes a lot more risky. And I'm not trying to tell you guys this is advice. This is just something that I've seen in my life, but it has made me very successful. Me questioning whether or not it was going to be the right thing for me to do if I really wanted to do it versus the fear of not trying at other people's expense or because I'm afraid of their judgment is something that I feel like I would regret for the rest of my life. So I always was willing to like step into that. And that's not always the easiest thing, and you will fail. But I do think that as long as you're consistent, you're taking care of yourself, and you have consistent good habits, you can enter you can enter flow states that will help you become more successful. So if you have chronic stress and you're starting to suffer from a lot of health issues, take a step back, look at your life, and ask yourself, are you trying to control all of these different outcomes and all of these different situations? And if the answer is yes, it might be worth it to let go for a little bit, give yourself some breathing room, and try to enter a more flow-like state for your life. Please feel free to share any of your stories where you feel like you were able to let go of control and good things happened in the comments. This is Conversations with Cody. I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.